What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Edge podcast, where we talk about Houston sports, Houston everything all the time. I'm your co-host, Ike Cuellar, right here with my boy Kush. What's going on, Kush? How are you doing today on the Sunday?
What's up, bro? It was a sad Sunday for obvious reasons. Texan, but we'll
Yeah,
get into that a
facts.
little bit later. You know, it was a good weekend, but yeah, the Texans really dictated my whole mood this Sunday, so we all know how that goes.
Yeah, our teams that are not the Astros always disappoint us, man. But we're ride and dies type of fan, so we're gonna still ride for our teams, man. Let's get it started, man. Let's get right into it with the Houston Rockets. After Christmas, after the game when we played Boston, we have lost 6 games in a row. And in a lot of ways, these losses are good because of the draft that's coming up. But I'm not gonna lie, man. Like these losses are taking a toll on me as a fan to go through these. I could just imagine the players, but a lot of these games, man, we've just been playing like ass. Granted, we had a very tough schedule. I mean, we played Dallas twice. We had New York Pelicans, our playoff team, Utah, and then Minnesota tonight. So, the schedule is not easy, man. We played a lot of tough teams, but when we played the Mavericks the first time, you know what happened there. Luka just went bonkers, and he's always going to do that, man. I feel like we don't have an answer for him right now, and we talked about it on one of our other podcasts where he's just unstoppable. Like very hard to guard. So the first time we played Dallas, it was bad because he went off in the second half. Um, for the New Year's Eve game, which me and you were both there, we played the New York Knicks. We didn't have Alprin Chingun that game, and it really showed on the scoreboard on the offensive side of the ball. We played like ass. I forgot how many points we scored, but it wasn't a pretty game to say the least. And granted that we played against a Tom Thibodeau coach team, he's always been a defensive first team that coaches his players to play defense and get after it on the defensive side first. Tough teams to play. We saw that when he was here in Houston when we had Jeff Van Gundy. He was the assistant, and I believe the Rockets were top 5 defensive team every year when they were our staff here. So, going up against Tom Thibodeau coach team is always going to be tough. But what do you think, man? What do you think, Kush, about how we look in some of these games and we're struggling right now, and it's tough to watch, but we just have to stay positive some way somehow and just look at the bright side, man. What do you think are some of the positives from these losses?
You know how they say you are what your record says you are, but
Yes,
I don't
sir.
think we are what our record says we are. Um, I think I think we can be better. We can be better than what our record says we are. Obviously they haven't played like that, but I mean they've shown they can beat good teams when they want to beat good teams, right? Like they beat the Bucks earlier this year. But right now they're just struggling, just not playing well at all. I think in today's game, Jalen Green like really, really struggled. And obviously he can't like as a player, you're not gonna have your best game every game. Sometimes you're gonna have shitty games, but it feels like these past like what is it, 7 losses in a row? Yeah, 7 losses in
Yep.
a row. Like, I mean, to be honest, this is this is the type of thing that can happen in a long NBA season. Um, and it's with the season that we anticipated to have, which is a losing season, like in the back of your head, you kind of knew something like this was going to happen. You hope it doesn't happen, but it's going to happen. But you just as a fan, you just got to look to the next game. Hope they improve on the things they didn't do well in the last game, the last few games that they lost. And I mean, as a Rockets fan right now, that's kind of how you have to look at it, you know? And pretty much it is what it is. Like you just have to look for those little improvements in the team. Uh yeah, that's that's my view on it. I think I think I've been very clear in the way I like look at the season and how I evaluate the season from the start of the season to like now and to the end, where I know we're not going to win a lot of games, but as long as we show improvement from the last game into the next game, from the last month into the next month, I think that's the main thing that I'm looking at.
Well, it's funny you say that because there's been, players. I'm not gonna say his name. I think everybody knows who it was that came out and said after a loss, he was very frustrated and he said that there's been no improvement on this team from just the way that we've been playing, the decisions that are being made. You could argue rotations, play calls, things of that nature. Um, and a lot of that, when you hear that, it points to the coaching staff. Now, if they got a plan that they want to approach in a different way, where we're not gonna. Some of us are not gonna get it as fans, but when you look at the product on the court, it just doesn't look well right now, man. It doesn't look good. And like the second time we played Dallas, we looked better, man. Like we looked like we wanted to actually go out there and play defense. It was a closer game. We had a different approach to guard Luca, in terms of, double teaming him and make sure you're picking him up early and the pick and roll, showing high and just staying with him. But ultimately they won the game at the end. But you just like to see those adjustments and your team fight harder like that. It really says a lot. When we played the Pelicans, I'm not gonna lie, man, we just looked like ass out there the entire game. Coach Silas got ejected early from the game because we started so poorly, and John Lucas took over, and I feel like the players really responded to him better. In the second half, we played really well on both sides, and we made it to a respectable game. Towards the end of the game, and you could just see, John Lucas really was holding these guys accountable, um, especially on defense, man. Like getting boards, boxing out, things of that nature. Just making sure that you covered your ass on defense and doing what you were supposed to do. But the defense has been a big problem this whole year, and I have to agree, with Gordon, man. There's really haven't been no improvements on the defensive side, man. Like the Utah game, we had one guy that went for 50 points. He was scoring everything, Kush. And bro was making threes. He was everywhere. Like we could not stop him to save our lives. I was there at the game, and dude had like 18, 20 points still in the first quarter. I mean, when you see somebody going off, you have to make adjustments and just play different. Like send something else out there, man. In terms of defense, like play zone, put a different guy on them. Send a double team when he starts to dribble something. And ultimately we lost that game too. But like you were talking earlier, tonight's game we played Minnesota, we started out so well. Everybody was sharing the ball. LP was cooking early in the game. He was eating Rudy Gobert's lunch in the first half. I believe he had like 18 points early, and then we just went away from him. Um, they made it to a close game at halftime, and it was just like downhill from there. They made a little run in the second half. The Timberwolves did, and then we had a small run towards the end of the third quarter. But fourth quarter, we just went ice cold. Jabari and Jalen Green with both struggling. Finding their shot and just turnovers. Um, I'm just like I'm just looking for anything positive right now, man. And the game started well, but in the second half they went away from LP. And I'm not saying LP will solve all the issues, but that guy is just a monster down there, man. From his IQ, passing ability, shooting, scoring, um, the guy can do it all. So I feel every time we get away from him, we just end up, you know, like failing miserably. Just like the Knicks game where he didn't play, you could tell, there was something missing there. But the bright spots that we have is we got Jayshawn Tate back, and Jayshawn Tate is really a leader on the court. He's a high IQ basketball player, which means that the way I see it is he knows when to make the right play at the right time. Passing, rebounding, looking up, getting the outlet pass going, getting the fast break going. There's so many things that he brings to the table. Talking on defense, communication. He just does a lot of things that we desperately need as a team, and you've seen it in the Utah and tonight's game. So really happy to have him back. Um, how do you feel about Jayshawn Tate from the little bit of stuff that you've seen the last couple of games, Kush?
So I think at the beginning of the season, and even last year, I was one of the people that we're having a debate who should start Tate or KJ Martin, right? And I said KJ Martin um, because of his athleticism, younger player, obviously. He can shoot a little bit. He electrifies the crowd with the dunks.
Oh
But
yeah,
you know,
bro's going crazy tonight.
yeah. and but the thing with Tate, and I feel like we've seen that they've been missing this a little bit, is what you talked about, like the little things he brings to the team, right? Um, and I feel like they've missed that. And I think the first game he came back, he had a decent game, and I was like, damn, that looks like something we've been missing this whole year, and it was good to see that. And
Facts.
um, I think we have a debate about who should start and all this stuff, but obviously there's things both guys bring to the team, different things and some of the same things, but I do feel like they've been missing what Tate, brings to the table for your team. And hopefully we'll see um the more games he plays this year, how we look as a team. So, and obviously we're all thinking about who's going to be here next year and the year after that or whatever, or even by the trade deadline. So, I mean, I think it's a huge month coming up to see, who's going to be on this team by the end of the year. And I want to say one thing on the Eric Gordon stuff, the no improvement stuff. He has a point, but I think you could kind of see the frustrations boiling over at that point. The team, they were from Eric Gordon's point of view, like the Rockets, the situation that the Rockets are in, that's not really something at my age, like at his point in his career that he really wants to be a part of. I mean, obviously he's a mentor to the young guys, but like if I'm him, I'm like, dude, I'm trying to win a championship. And
Facts.
I
That's
think
understandable. Yeah.
I think he's handled it pretty well, but obviously, sometimes frustrations boil over, and I think that's what happened.
Yeah, man, I agree. He deserves to be on a contender, whether it's Phoenix or Philadelphia 76ers, get reunited again with James Harden, Daryl Morey. They know how valuable he is, what he can bring to a team. And I totally agree with that, man. Because from looking at him as a professional, he has handled it so well. He's really the only guy here left from the 2017 2018 team. And he's just a real professional. But like you said, sometimes, your frustration and you get mad, it makes you say stuff. And, I don't blame bro. So, but yeah, man, we have a West Coast road trip coming up here in the next week or so. We play Sacramento twice. We play the Clippers and then the Lakers on back to back. So really excited to see how we look on the road and how we can improve and how we approach those games, in terms of defense because those teams are really good. And I don't like the Clips and the Lakers back to back. Whoever made the schedule, I hate you. I'm gonna say it again, like over and over. Like y'all just trying to do the most with that, man. Like that's not right. But let's move on to the Houston Texans. A team that doesn't stop stealing my joy on Sundays,
Say that
and
again.
a team that does not stop stealing my joy on Sundays. And that's a crime, bro. That's a cardinal sin. The Sunday, Sundays are the day of the Lord, man. Like you can't be doing that. But ultimately we do that to ourselves, right? So we had this game where we're playing the Colts, and all we have to do is lose to get the number one pick, right? That's all we have to do. And when the game started, we were playing well. I was pissed off from early in the game. Like I was already mad. It was 17-7. I think we got a pick six from I believe his name's Ellinger, the quarterback from the Colts, that he threw that made it 17-7. And to be honest, bro, like I haven't seen this Texans team the whole fucking year. Like I have not seen them play like that. And I'm gonna let you go first, man, because I need to just calm down a little bit, man. I'm still pissed off
The
about it.
blood pressure
What do
kind
you
of high
think?
because the Texans, huh?
Yeah, man. Like these motherfuckers, man, they know how to piss me off. But what do you think about this the stupid decision to win the game?
I mean, it's funny because I'm gonna go straight to the end of the game, right? They score the touchdown, and they tie the game, right? Or they're down by one or something, and they go for two. And instead of kicking the point after, they choose to win the game. And it's funny because in the first game of the season, we had a situation like that against the same team, the Colts. And what did they do? They choose to not go for the win and go for the tie. And so like it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And from the player's standpoint, I understand it. Like you want to win. It's your last game. You want to win. Um, if you're Davis Mills, like you're probably not going to be here next year anyway. So you want to put a good performance on tape. So hopefully, if we do let him go, then another team can pick him up. And I do understand that, but you have to think about the future for the Texans because that's the thing that's the most important, right? And I've had a lot of people today, you know, telling me that, well, it's okay, bro. You get the number two pick. The Bears get the number one pick. Bears already have a quarterback, so you're probably still gonna get your quarterback anyway. But like my whole point is it's bigger than just getting the quarterback that you want. To me, like we've seen these Texans home games where nobody's there, bro. That's the first time in a long time that I've seen that with the Texans. And I think that speaks volumes. And the reason that I really wanted us to get the first pick is because if you get that first pick from the end of the season until combine time, who's the one team that gets the most buzz around them? It's the one with the number one pick, right? And I feel like as a organization, and just to reconnect with the fans. I feel like they need that. And that brings me to another point about the Texans saying that they're going to change uniforms, or they're looking into like revamping their uniforms. And a lot of people were hating on that, but my whole point with that was I feel like that'll be a good thing because like the disconnect with the fans is like so far apart right now that they need to reel their fans back in somehow. And I feel like maybe if you know something as small as a uniform change can kind of spark that, you know. And so to me, like not getting the first pick is more than just oh this you're still gonna get your quarterback. Like I get that, but they really needed the number one pick to get that fan interest up a little bit because it's just been like really depressing this year. Just you know, and I've debated going to more games this year, but then like I watched the game and like there's nobody there, and it's just like whenever even when we were bad when we first started with the Texans, right? 04, 05, 06, whatever, it was still a packed house every single game. And now
Thanks.
it's just it's bad, man. Like I don't think people really can grasp how bad it is, but just seeing like no fans there, it's just they have to do something to get that fan interest back up. And I feel like getting the number one pick would have done that. Obviously, that didn't happen, but we'll see. I mean, to me, the immediate future for the Texans is really uncertain right now because Lovie Smith probably not going to come back. Um, I actually thought Nick Casario would be safe, but you know, who's to say they just don't completely clean house and just start all the way over? So those are my immediate thoughts of the Texans, not getting that number one pick.
Yeah, man, I agree with everything you said. From this, from what happened today, and let me say this first before I talk about them some more. We know they don't give a shit about the fans, bro. Like I think that's clear from I don't know the last 4 or 5 years. Um, I say that because I'm a diehard fan, and I always felt like they don't give a shit about the fans. Number one, but with them winning this game today, it really seems like the Texans are trolling the fans, their own fans, bro. Like if you think about it, because you look like ass the whole year. You tanked on purpose the entire year. Like these losses were not, fun to watch. Most of them weren't. I know we beat Tennessee this year, which, we always beat Tennessee at least one time. Fuck Tennessee, right? Like, I don't like Tennessee. They're in our division. But you were asked all year just to win the last game and lose out on the number one pick. That's trolling at its finest. That is trolling the fans at its finest because we're like, we're losing. We're gonna get that first pick. It's guaranteed in football. We've talked about it numerous times on this podcast. And what do? They fucking win the last game. And now we have a number two pick. And I get it because, like, from the number two pick, from the people that say, hey, you still got a number two pick, um, you know, look at on the bright side, you're going to force the Chicago Bears to make that decision at number one. That's a tough decision from what, some people, how they look at it in the draft. Who are you going to get? What do they need? Right. And they might not even use, they might trade that pick to a team that needs a quarterback. Who knows? But it's about the principle, man. Like before the season started, John McClain, he's one of the best journalists out there in Houston that's covered the Houston Oilers and the Houston Texans, you know, well known, like really good journalists. Before the season started, they asked them, hey, do you take the Texans to win 5 games or under? or 5 games and over. He said, "No, I'll take the under all the way." And keep in mind who this is. This is John McClain. So when he says that, you know they're tanking, bro. Like you know this year was gonna be ass because we're trying to get one of those picks. And when you're there, you have a chance to get that number one pick and you screw it up. It's just like I just can't wrap my head around it, bro. Like um one of the last drives in the game, we were in it was a 4th and 20. We needed 20 yards to pick up the first down. The Colts were playing prevent defense. And even the Colts, like, fuck them. I hate them for being that sorry and letting us win. That's another story. But we ain't gonna get into that. Like, when you play prevent defense, bro, you're supposed to have somebody back there, even if because you send almost everybody back there. And Brandon Cooks got open and he made that catch. And I'm like, what in the world are we doing here? 4th and 20. We had to convert that. We converted that in the red zone, scored a touchdown, and then went for two and got it. Like you can't even make this shit up, bro. And
They won, in the most Texans way possible.
yeah, I was just
who
about to say that.
it's like,
Yeah,
man,
like that's the most Texan thing to do in that moment. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking, oh shit, like maybe Lovey is going for two because he's gonna tell him, hey man, just like throw it out of bounds or like I don't know, like look like you're gonna score, but don't score. I know they can't tell their players that or they can't say that, but you have a chance there to still lose the game, right? When you're
yeah.
going for two. And nope, like he said, score that shit. In a lot of ways, people were talking about it. They were saying that Lovey knows he's not going to be here next year, so he was trying to stick it to the Texans, which I don't know. I would understand because of how they were the entire year, and they kind of just used them in a way this year to be like that bridge coach to tank and then hire somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
Um,
it's one of those things where even like when we hired him, I didn't see really like who saw him as the long-term head coach here. Nobody, right? And it's like we remember how last year the offseason went with the whole Josh McCown stuff, the whole Brian Flores, Miami Dolphins shit, and you know, and I'm gonna be on record saying this, like the only reason I think that the Texans, promoted him from D coordinator to head coach is because nobody else wanted to fucking take this job. But now, even without the number one pick, right? We have a number two pick. You can obviously get a quarterback will probably be available with that number two pick. If you're, I've said this in the past on this podcast, like if I'm a head coach looking for a job, I have my pick of my quarterback that I want with that number two pick. So with that makes this job. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's like the dream job or whatever, but it makes this job a little bit more enticing. You have a lot of picks to play with. You have a lot of cap space this off season, and so if we compare like this off season to last off season we had nothing. We had shit, like absolutely nothing. And even last year, I think we forget like we still had the Deshaun Watson thing hanging over our heads where we're trying to trade him, we're trying to do whatever with him. And so now we don't have to worry about that. So if you're a coach, I think the Texans would be, well, I'd say this. If you're a young coach, I think the Texans would be a good job for a new head coach, especially now that we don't have all the Deshaun Watson drama hanging over our heads. Because I think that was a number one thing that was like scaring coaches away last year.
Facts, man. I agree. And let's put the negative, the hate, and the frustration to the side for a second. Because I know it's hard, but like I'm just trying to stay positive and look at this in a positive way, right? So with the number 2 pick, I feel like CJ Stroud's going to be there. And I just feel like the way that he looked against Ohio State was really good. He's a taller quarterback. He's taller than Bryce Young. He can still rush, and create plays with his legs when the play breaks down. And I wouldn't put that over the Texans, man. I think maybe a reason why we were okay with this is to put the pressure on the Chicago Bears, and because we really like CJ Stroud as a quarterback. He's bigger. I feel like he's a more physical quarterback where he can take more punishment. Sometimes a running quarterback is not always the best thing, but he's a bigger quarterback that Nick Casario typically likes to draft and to invest in versus the smaller guys, which can still be good, but it's just Nick Casario's, what he prefers. But yeah, man, I just feel like that's pretty much like the only positives that we have in terms of looking at this situation and losing out on this number 1 pick, man. It was just, tough to watch. But you know, we just gotta trust in Nick Casario and hope that he makes the right decision there and just still try to ride for our team, man.
Said all the stuff about Nick Casario, right? Like, but I think we need to wait a week because I don't know what the hell is gonna happen, man. Like Lovie
No,
Smith
that's true.
is probably gonna be
That's true.
gone. Maybe Nick Casario is gonna be gone too. Like we do not know. So, you know, I think this is when we suck. This is always my favorite part of the season is like the week after the season ends because like so much shit is happening. Coaches getting fired, GMs getting fired, whatever. So we'll see what happens, and maybe by the next episode we're gonna have some huge news for you guys. We'll see, man.
Yeah, man. I hope in a way, it'll be better to clean house too because Nick Casario is a Patriots guy, and I just want to get away from that Patriot shit, bro. Like, let's just do our own thing. Why are we still trying to be the Patriots? We're never going to be the Patriots. So
Yeah.
and I understand he signed like a 6-year deal with us. He's real close with McNair. I don't think he's gonna leave. He's gonna get fired, but we'll see, man. Like, if he does get fired, maybe this would be the right move for the Texans to hire uh, um, our own team and not try to be the Patriots South and learn all that bullshit, all that cheating that they did up there from stealing
Yeah,
all
we
that
could
shit they
we
were
could do
doing.
this. We could do a podcast on that for hours and hours if we could, but well,
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
we're gonna see what happens, and um,
So breaking news, guys, just came out. The Houston Texans have fired their head coach Lovie Smith, which to a lot of us is not a big surprise. But the fact that they did it today tells you a lot about what really was going on behind the scenes and just the type of franchise the Texans are, man. Like, I don't feel good about this, even though we knew it was coming, even though it needed to be done in a way. But I want to get your thoughts on it, Kush. What is this? What does this tell you about this move the Texans made the day that we lose out on the number 1 pick?
yeah, this like I I didn't even like earlier we're talking about like we'll have to wait a week into next week, but I was shocked that they made it this quick. Um, yeah, I'm kind of in shock right now because I did not expect them to do it tonight. It's like
Facts,
what 10:10 at night right now on Sunday night, and they
facts,
fired Lovie Smith. And it's we've talked about it before. I never thought that he was going to be the long-term coach here, which today proved that. They fired him. And I think I remember a report a few days ago where like they had like, Cal and Lovie Smith had conversations about, his future here or whatever and all that. like all that stuff. And I'm kind of curious to see how those conversations went because if you had a sit down with Lovey and you told him, "Yeah, we're gonna let you go at the end of the season," and if that was like a concrete thing, no matter what happened in the last game of the season, my question is, why not just fire him the day before? And maybe if you fire him the day before, who knows what happens in the game, interim coach and all that stuff. But yeah, dude, I'm I'm in shock right now that they did it this quickly. Um, yeah, dude, I don't really know what else to say. I'm just in shock that they did it this quickly, like the day of the game, like like a few hours, several hours after the game has ended. Um, so like my whole thing is I want to know how that initial conversation went between Lovie Smith and Calvin McNair, like what was said. I think that's the most like now looking back on that, I think that's the most interesting thing about it.
Yeah, man, I agree because if you remember what happened after the game, they were interviewing him and they put him, they basically put him on the spot and they were asking him what happened, what was your approach for the game, and he said, "You play to win the game." That was his response. And somebody else asked him, "Do you expect to be here next year?" And he said, "Yes, absolutely. I expect to be here next year." And when you hear that, and then you hear the news of him being fired, it just tells you how bad this Texans organization has been ran now forever, ever since McNair, the senior, passed away. R.I.P. to him. Ever since ever since his son took over, it's been in very bad hands. I feel like the Texans haven't been ran well, as an organization, from everything personnel moves, from giving Bill O'Brien all the power to be a head coach and general manager, and trading D Hop for a bag of chips and the sandwich. Um, it just everything that has happened has been has left the organization in shambles, man. And you know, even touches on the points we made earlier, where Nick Casario, is from the Belichick tree, and he always was under the philosophy, of the Patriots and how they ran things up there. And for him not to get any of this, you know, any of these type of um like just any bad looks about this man, like it doesn't sit well with me, man, because he deserves a lot of blame too. And the Texans basically, now that when you look at it, they hired Lovie Smith to tank for a whole year and for the Texans to look like ass. And when everything goes wrong, they want to say, "Hey, he's the head coach. Point your finger at him. This is why we suck, because of him." They wanted to use him as a scapegoat. And I just feel like they've been like this for a long time, where they just don't know what they're doing. It clearly shows that. And even though I thought it was a W when we got rid of Jack Easterby, we kind of still in the same spot, bro, because we still have, you know, Nick Casario with us that was part of the Patriots. And I'm not saying he's like Jack Easterby, but it's just, you just like feel hopeless, man, as a Texan fan, because it needed to be done, obviously, because this was such a bad year. But I just don't know like where to go from here. Like, who are we gonna hire? I hope we don't do nothing stupid like go hire fucking Josh McCown again. Are you fucking kidding me? We were actually gonna hire him last year. with no head coaching experience. I mean, there's been some guys before in the past that have been ex players that have been turned out to be great coordinators or even head coaches, but that's not the recipe for that's not who you want as a head coach, man. Like especially when you're rebuilding the way that we are, and the plan that we have. But I don't know, man. It just makes the day even worse in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes,
is
it's
is
like
there
they
any?
couldn't even let us sleep on it, man. Like,
Yeah,
it's like damn. And like one thing I want to say is Nick Casario is now 0 for 2 on head coaches. So, I said this when the offseason after Deshaun Watson or the offseason after we blew that big lead to the Chiefs when Deshaun Watson was still here. That year I said this is the biggest offseason in franchise history. And who did they get? They got David Culley, right? And I think that was the year they got Nick Casario too. And so now I'm gonna say it again. This is probably the biggest offseason in Nick Casario's career right now because he needs to hit this head coaching hire out of the park. He needs to hit the draft out of the park if we are ever gonna see any type of improvement for the Texans organization. Um, and we're not really gonna go into like who the possible candidates are right now because we still got the playoffs to go. And I think that's something we'll discuss after the Super Bowl. But yeah, and it's crazy because when we first hired Lovie Smith, like in my heart of hearts, I knew this day was coming, right? Like you knew he wasn't going to be the head coach of the future. You knew it was going to be a 1 year thing, and just the past 24 hours, everything that's transpired is like, you know, is Nick Casario next? We don't know. We talked about this earlier. Like, I really don't know if they're going to fire Nick Casario too and just start the whole damn thing over.
in my opinion, Kush, he's not going nowhere. Nick Casario, he has a very good relationship with McNair. McNair has talked about him, openly a lot, open like about him a lot, about how much he believes in him and trusts him. But that's where you run into a problem, bro. Like when you let the general manager have too much power. And it's the same thing with the coach. Like everybody has to do their job. If you're here as a general manager, you have to be here for personnel, right? You help the coach draft and acquire players and assets and things like that, and you do your job. You're not here to like also try to coach the team and call up plays and dictate how we're gonna try to win this game this week, things like that of that nature. But I don't think he's going anywhere. But I'm with you. I agree with you when you say, Nick Casario should not survive like another head coach firing. Like if we hire another head coach and he gets canned as well, he should get fired with him also because, like you said, he's already 0 for 2 in coaches. The next time we need to be in the playoffs already. We need to win our division. That's the next step. And I hope we can get it done. But, I just feel like when you have a shitty owner, I said this before, man, like when you have a shitty owner, it's hard to fix that. Like, you could just imagine, like, if, because there's been, stories before in NFL of owners telling their head coaches to suck and to tank. And a lot of times that don't go, that don't, that's not, that they don't agree with that. The head coach doesn't agree with that. They want to win games. So you can just imagine if it happened, like I'm not saying it did, if McNair was telling Lovie Smith, like, hey, we got to tank and we got to lose. And, maybe that's why Lovie Smith wanted to win this game to stick it to the Texans. And like I said earlier,
Yeah, and
and
that's what
I
that's
don't
what I was
blame
saying
him. Like,
earlier. Like, it's like I want to know how that initial conversation went because if Cal McNair was like, "Hey, bro, like, we're probably gonna fire you after this game," uh, if I'm Lovie Smith, I'm like, "Bro, fuck this shit." It's
Yeah,
like imagine at your job, right? Your boss is like, "Hey, I'm gonna fire you like in a couple days, so um like would you put forth 100% effort in the next day at your job? Hell no, right? Because you know you're getting fired.
no,
So it's like
yeah,
that's why I want to know how the conversation went. And as far as like you talked about the press conference earlier today, like when Lovie Smith was like, "No, yeah, I expect to be here." That kind of like he's either lying and about that, or the other side of it is in that meeting they they told him he was going to be here next year, and they just kind of turned it around and just fired him at the end of the night. Like, in my opinion, that's probably the more likely scenario, just knowing the way this team is run, right?
yeah,
And so that's the most interesting part of it to me.
yeah. And what I was saying earlier too, Kush, was when I was trying to find the word to describe, Nick Casario in this situation, what I meant to say was it's not fair that he doesn't get no heat. I know it's still early. We just lost today. But if this guy does not receive any heat for what happened this year, it's not fair because you didn't even give the coach like no, you didn't even let the coach sleep on it or nothing. You fired him, you canned his ass the same day. And I don't think that that's fair. Of course, I'm just a fan, just looking at the game, but I've been a Texan fan way too long. And that's why I have white hairs on my head right now, bro. It's because the fucking Houston Texans, they stress me out and they just find new ways to lose and to fuck shit up. It's just facts. Like every year, we just do something stupid. Like today, we lost the number one pick because, of the turmoil that's going on in the front office, potentially. I don't know why exactly that happened, but that's what I think. That's my opinion. Like everybody's telling you to tank the whole year, tank, like you have to lose this game, you have to lose this game. Lovey went up there and said, no, fuck that. And guess what? It was a meme they put out earlier on Twitter. Lovey Smith used to coach the Chicago Bears, you know? So guess who he helped out? The Chicago Bears.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, right? So it's just funny how
Yeah,
like that all went down. But yeah, dude, like Nick Casario should be on the hot seat like right now. Like even at the beginning of the year when we got Lovie Smith, I was like, we obviously know this is like a 1 year thing. He's probably gonna get fired at the end of the year, which he did. And so now it's like for Nick Casario, it's like nut cutting time, bro. You gotta you gotta hit a home run on the head coach, and you gotta hit a home run in the draft. And if you don't do those two things, like Cal McNair has to be in the back of his head, asking him like, how much longer do I want to keep him around? And and I think with this firing and the whole Nick Casario situation, that makes next year like very, very crucial. If they don't make leaps of improvement like next season, then do you fire Nick Casario next year? Like these are all the questions that Cal McNair has to be asking himself right now. And like, you know, it's hard it's hard to be Cal McNair right now, bro, because so many questions. You don't really have a lot of answers right now. And let's just see how this thing shakes out. And the thing about it is, like, if someone were to ask me, well, hey, now that Lovie Smith is fired, who do you see as a new head coach for the Texans? And it's not who do I see, because like as fans, we, you know, we can say who we want as head coach, but we're not the owner, right? It's the question is, are they gonna do the Josh McCown thing again like they did last year? Or are they gonna try to get one of these young coordinators? Are they gonna try to, you know, do something outside of the box that we don't expect? Like as fans, we don't know what the fuck is gonna happen with the Texans, And that's the scariest part, bro. Like we don't know which way it's gonna go. So, as a fan, it's a roller coaster ride this offseason. And like honestly, I'm just along for the ride, man, because I don't know what the hell's gonna happen.
Yeah, and let me say this about Cal McNair, man. I also think it's not fair that like this man is never put in a position for anybody to ask him any questions because he needs to be the one answering these questions, like you said. They need to ask him, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, what was your plan? Why this guy and why that guy, right? And I feel like they're going to give the power that they gave Bill O'Brien to Nick Casario. And that's, hiring the next coach. Who do you think we should hire? And personnel moves. He's already the general manager. He's gonna want to try to tell him like, hey, you need to play this guy or run this kind of offense like we did when I was in the Patriots because it worked for so and so years. Like this is already looking like a shit show. And I know it's early to say because we're all mad, like as Texan fans right now, because of what happened today. But we need to have a, a good head coach, man, like a good hiring. He needs to be able to do shit his own way, like to coach the team to where he has the trust of Cal McNair and Nick Casario to where he can do his job. Because imagine you trying to do a job and somebody's in your ear telling you, no, 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 don't do this, do it like that, or do this. I want you to do that. And you have like 15 years of experience doing your job. That's why you're still around. So I'm all for like hiring a young coordinator, that's been successful in the league, and whether it's putting up points or being on defense. I know this is a dream of mine, but I'm gonna say his name out there. I would love D'Amico Ryans as a head coach, bro. And I think if we saw that as Texan fans, I think it would be like, okay, now we're working with something, right? Because this guy has been a great defensive coordinator with the 49ers, and they've been one of the top defenses in the last couple, 2 or 3 years. And that would be, a move that I feel like the fans would appreciate. But then again, they don't give a shit about the fans. They want to do their own thing. But yeah, man, that's my thoughts about it. And it's just like this is this has totally been like a Texan day of like just a shit show.
Yeah, and like you said about the D'Amico Ryan's thing, we talked about it earlier. Like this organization has a disconnect with the fans. And I'm not saying they should hire D'Amico Ryan's for that reason specifically, but at the same time, like D'Amico Ryan's is one of the hot coaching candidates right now. I think he's going to be this offseason. It just so happens that he played for you for a lot of years, you know, he was a Houston Texan, so he's got that like connection with your fan base at least. Um, but like I said, we're gonna have to see like who the candidates are. And as a fan, I would like D'Amico Ryans as a head coach. I think that would be a good hire. He's coached under Kyle Shanahan, so he has that experience under his belt. He's coached a great defense. He knows defense. He was a really good middle linebacker for us back in the day, and I think it'll be a good hire, but like I said, we'll just have to see, how the coaching search goes, and it's a new day once again, and for the Houston Texans, once again we're looking for a new head coach, so that's a little bit of excitement for me, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, man, looking forward to it. Um, so we're gonna end it here, guys. We just wanted to, break that news to you guys. It could be a lot of you guys can like that, or a lot of you guys, still be mad, just like myself. But we're looking forward to next year, and hopefully, the Texans can get better from this and hire somebody that we can trust, man. But with that, we're gonna sign off. Um, please follow us at Inside the H Podcast. We're on Twitter, um, and we're also on Apple and Spotify. With that, I hand it off to Kush.
Yeah, guys, follow, sub, like, retweet. Like I said, we're on Apple and Spotify. And Lovie Smith fired. This is the first for us as a podcast, breaking news while we're recording the podcast. So that was pretty cool. And no Lovie Smith gone. Let the search for the new head coach begin, man.
Yes, sir. Inside the H.